Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the BQEYZ Topaz. This is the latest from BQEYZ, actually one of my favorite tri-fi brands. And let's get straight into it. This is the box. Simple, nothing too unusual, very much along the lines of what BQEYZ usually offers. This is the stock cable. I asked for 4.4. I actually didn't change the cable just for the sake of being easy to connect to my DAC amps and my dongles and so on and so forth, but it's actually a 4.4 mil and very nice quality cable, mind you. Okay, and then obviously the IEMs come over here, and then we've got a nice selection of tips, and I'm actually using the stock tips. I have to admit that usually the BQEYZ tips work very nicely, not only with their own IEMs but also with the other IEMs, and I've actually measured and compared with the KB 07s and BGVP 07s and even the Aquastone 07s, and very similar. Anyway, that's the box. Simple, straight to the point, no frills. It brings the essentials. Okay. The other thing that it brings obviously is the carrying case. All right, a little bit different from the usual square ones that they usually bring. Cleaning tool, and then the IEMs themselves. Okay, there we go. There's two colors. There's this purple faceplate color and then a silver gray kind of color as well. Nice construction. It's a resin shell with a metal faceplate. Inside it sports a 13mm driver, which I believe, it's not I believe, it's a 13mm driver, LCP diaphragm with a 9-layer piezo, which again is very much a signature of BQEYZ. They are known for having a lot of their IEMs with piezo implementation. The spring 2, summer. So yeah, that's basically it. In terms of fit, perfectly, no complaints there. Fits perfectly, isolates pretty decently. They're relatively light, so no fatigue coming along the lines of being tiresome to have them in your ears or anything of the sort. Absolutely fine. There's nothing to say here. All right. Most of my listening was done with with two dongles, let's put it that way. M15 Q style, just love this thing to death, and the Piezoelectric 5K. I also did some listening briefly with my Frankenstein, my NX7 with the Acme deck, and with my Topping DX3 Pro, but most of the listening was done actually with this and with the Piezoelectric. This the reason for this is very simple. It just seems to match perfectly with all the IEMs. I really have no, I mean, even with the Summer, which I have here, which has a piezo, and depending on what your power source is, you can, I must say, feel the harshness, but you can sense the aggressiveness or the presence of the piezo even with this. And the M15, it's flawless. It's absolutely flawless. Anyway, as I was saying, what do I have here to compare the Topaz with? Well, I've got the BQEYZ Summer, BQEYZ Autumn, and then I've got a stock blonde. I've got my Bloxygen, and I've got here as well the Moondrop Aria, the Snow Edition. And really, this is not so much a comparison, but a way to better establish the sound that the Topaz has. And actually, let me just put the graph here, and I'll start explaining and give my thoughts about it. There we go. That's the graph of the Topaz. And as you can see, it's got a pretty decent. Let me just get here a pointer. Okay, it's got a pretty nice focus on the sub bass, with a nice, although controlled bump in the mid bass, and then blending into the low mids, and so on and so forth. I didn't really find that it, I would say, that in the traditional sense of bleeding, no, it didn't, not in my opinion. What I did find was that it has got a, it's got a very warm sound. It's got a sound, as a fellow colleague of mine, Paul Wasabi, mentioned. It's got a sound that kind of reminds you a lot of the blonde. Okay, and let me just quickly put the graph of the blonde. Okay, let me just align it a little bit better. There we go. That's it. That's much better. Okay, and as I was saying, it's got very much a sound and a tonality that reminds me, and those that hear it will remind them a lot of the blonde sound. And the blonde sound, as we all know, is that very, it's got a very, let's say, old school kind of tonality to it. It's you know, it's a very, it's a pleasant sound. It's very pleasant. It's very warm. Maybe a little bit too thick in the mid bass, which then can kind of cloudy up a little bit of the rest of the details. But honestly, no, I think the blonde is nicely tuned. It's got a nice entertaining tune. It's not fatiguing in any way, at least not for me. And even its flaws that it has, when you consider that it costs $30 and it was even cheaper when it first came out, you can't really fault it. That's the reality. I mean, and as you can see by the graph, it's got that nice sub bass focus. You know, very much the same type of mid bass and low mids as the Topaz, and then it's around the 5K area where you see the biggest differences to start with, and then again past 10K, where you definitely do see some energy. You know, that area there, you do see some energy. What does this all translate to? Well, the blonde's got a little bit more air. The blonde's got a little bit more, like I usually say, sparklies and twinklies and so on. And depending on what tip you use, and I'm actually using foam tips on my blonde here, it sounds nice. I mean, the treble is not harsh in any way. It's not like I said, if you put into context of what it is and what it costs, it sounds very good. And there's a reason why it's one of the most popular IEMs ever to come out from the Chifi world. And while it still is sold today, after it was already released in 2019, so it's been going for a while. The curious thing here is, because there's a difference in size and with regards to the actual driver, the blonde driver and the Topaz driver, one is a 10 and one is a 13mm, you would think that this let's say 5 dB difference that you have in the Topaz would mean that it's not as full, not as engaging, and you further from the truth. It isn't. There's plenty bass in the Topaz. Do not in any way be fooled by what you see in the graph. The same way as when you see that peak there at 8K, you might think that, oh my god, this thing is going to kill me, it's going to try and stab my ears to death. No, again, if there's one thing that I will say, like I said about in the beginning, is that the Topaz is a very, very laid back IEM for the context of what it is, which is it's got nice full bass, plenty of impact, plenty of slam, more than perhaps some people might like. So it's got an overall sound, like I would say, up to about 4K, which is very reminiscent of the blonde. Okay, it's got a nice tonality, it's got a nice timbre. I really didn't find that they were off or unnatural. It's a very, very pleasant sound. Okay, but then the implementation of the piezo has been done in such a way that it's so relaxed, so chilled out, as compared to, for example, the summer, that you have a really hard time picking up on it. You really have a hard time on seeing, oh, okay, that's the reality. And so this brings with it as well no harshness, no aggressiveness, no raspiness, no nothing. It's a clean treble, although because it was tamed down so much, it's very laid back, and there's yes, less sense of of sparklies, like I say, of twinklies, as compared, for example, to the blonde. Okay, let me just quickly take out here the blonde and put the summer, just so that you can see. Okay, as you can see straight away, it's there, it's for all to see, and when you listen, you pick up on it straight away. In terms of the bass, it's got basically the same bass as the summer, in quantity, in quality, in its cleanliness, in its impact, and up to about 3K they are almost identical. It's then the fact that you've got this dip here, between, so this well, it's downward slope already from the peak around 2K, but then it gets significant right off the 4K. That dip that you get there, it does close down slightly certain female vocals. Okay, it does just and certain instruments as well get slightly, overly dampened, overly relaxed. And it's very easy when you're listening to the summer, and you straight away swap over to the Topaz. You pick up on it quite easily. I'm just going to show you a graph here as well of the autumn. It's just so that we again get another sense. And again, here we go, autumn. Again, very similar in the bass, very similar up to 2K. And then the autumn carries on with that energy, which actually has a slight peak there at 5, and then comes down, and then we have that energy past. And you notice it very well. You do feel that the autumn is just a little bit more open. But having said all that, and some of you might know that I did a little small mod on the autumn, which I'm actually going to put now. Okay, this is the modified autumn. And why did I put that modified? Why did I do that mod to the autumn? Well, as you can see, almost identical to the Topaz in terms of bass and everything. It then has a more gradual pinna gain. There's a little bit less energy there at around 2K, and then the 5K peak has also come down. What this basically translates to is that sibilance that sometimes you would get on the stock autumn, it's gone. And overall, the whole balance of the sound just sounds more correct compared to the Topaz, be it this slightly modified one or the stock one. Like I said, the biggest difference that you notice is straight away that the autumn has got a little bit more open sound, a little bit more detail. Okay, so it's not engaging, more engaging or less engaging. No, it's not. It's just a little bit more open. Okay. Well, let me show you the aria, and then we carry on talking. Here we go. Aria Snow Edition. Sorry about that. Okay, aria Snow Edition. As you can see, straight away, graphically it might not be perceived that way, but the fact that the aria, the Snow Edition especially, from 100 to 800 hertz, it's got quite a bit less mid bass. You do feel that the sound in the aria is more lean. It's thinner sounding. On the good side, let's put it that way, is that it opens up the mids and vocals and all that totally. And although even though compared to the stock aria, it is less detailed, less energetic, let's put it that way, in the upper frequencies, it's still got more energy. It's still got more detail than the Topaz. Okay, so let me now just focus on the IEMs so that we can carry on talking a little bit more in detail. All right. So how can I then better help position the Topaz? The Topaz is a very, very chilled out IEM, in the sense that it's not got the energy that you would expect from an implementation of a piezo. It's very relaxed in that aspect, coupled with the bass that you find in the autumn or in the spring. The summer. So it's got this bass energy that these two brothers have, and that overall gives you a sound that is warm, Okay, it's warm. It's not dark. It's warm. It's got this nice added lushness to the voices. But at the same time, it will make some female voices lose that extra sparkle. It will make some instruments lose that extra twang that they have, guitars and so on. It's just a little bit more subdued, which will be fine for some people, and other people might not like it. I personally think it's a amazing IM, honestly. For the $79 that it's being commercialized for, I think it's worth it, very well worth it, because it's given us another option, and a well done option. So you have the ARIA fans like I am. You have the fans of the Olina. You have they're all around. They're all below the $100 mark. And you have the fans of the T3 Plus. But the thing is, all of those IEMs, so T3 Plus, Olina, Melee to a certain extent as well, but all of them, Melee, Olina, T3 Plus, the ARIA, they all kind of follow the same, more or less the same type of sound, okay? And BQEYZ, as with the Topaz, kind of broken that mold. It's kind of drifted away slightly, but it's drifted away in a nice way, in the sense that the sound that the Topaz gives us is warm, although chilled out in the upper frequencies, in the upper mids and presence area. It's no sibilance that I can honestly make claim to, nothing. Only the fact with certain voices, certain female voices on certain songs, things will just be a little bit less forward, that's all. But overall, very nice. I mean, honestly, very, very, very nice. I also compared it briefly to my Bloxygen, which is my modified blonde, just to give it as well a bit more context of what it would be like, or what it sounded like. And compared to the Bloxygen, it very much, okay, the Bloxygen very much follows the stock bass curve, and although in the mid bass it's a little bit more subdued as compared to the stock one. And then it's the fact that it has that plateau across that 2 to 8K area, and then that energy past 8K or past 10K, let's put it that way rather. It gives that it gives the Bloxygen. You know what? Let me just show it to you. It's easier. There we go. That's the Bloxygen curve there. Let me just change the color so that it can stand out slightly. There we go. There we go. That's it. Nice. As I was saying, compared to the Topaz, the Bloxygen has got all very similar kind of sub bass, bass, and mid presentation. It's just then that it doesn't have that dip there in that area between 4 and 7K, which gives that extra detail, brings that extra sparkle to certain instruments and so on and so forth. And then it's got all that energy past 10K, which maybe not as prominent as the graph says, but you notice it, okay? And so compared to the Bloxygen is just an overall more open sound, although up to, I would say, 3-4K, it's very, very similar to the Topaz. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, there's really nothing more that I can add to the Topaz, in that well, it's a well executed IEM with a different style of tuning as compared to what the majority of the other brands are using, and basically does justice to what I say, which is, if you're going to do something different, make sure you do it properly. Don't do something different and don't take time to really listen to it and R&D it properly, and then launch it and expect people to just fall in love with it. I mean, one of the examples that comes to mind is the Wizard HD or 3D. Nobody's saying that the engineers didn't do their work, or that they didn't do what they thought was an optimal tuning. But when you're paying that kind of money, which is upper $170, $180, you expect a certain standard. and you listen to the whizzer, and you can't help but feel disappointed because it's cheaper, brother. The BS1 just sounds miles better than it. Miles. Even the HE01 sounds better. So in that aspect, kudos and congratulations to BQEYZ. They tried something different. They executed it properly, and compared to its brothers, like I said, it hasn't got the energy of the piezo that you find in the summer, but it benefits by not having that energy, giving you a more tonally correct, to a certain extent, a more realistic sound than the summer. The summer you felt it was pushed, it was too colored. Okay, as compared to the autumn, I'm actually going to say that, in my opinion, this is a baby autumn. Okay, so for those that maybe want an autumn but can't reach that far, the Topaz is actually a safe alternative, in the sense that it only loses out to the autumn in having just a little bit less detail in that area between 4 and 7K, more or less, because up top they're very, very similar, as compared to the Snow Edition. I have it here just to get a sense of a complete opposite, in terms of not having that kind of bass energy, or that bass emphasis, and although it's very detailed, and in terms of technicalities, yes, really good. And the blonde, because it does remind you a lot of the blonde, and I wasn't honestly, I wasn't expecting it, and I actually have to thank Paul for having mentioned it, because it made me go and check out the blonde and say, well, you know what, this really is a blonde. Oh, one last thing before I go, in terms of its overall technicalities, the Topaz, decent enough soundstage, decent enough imaging. I think that the fact that it's just slightly relaxed in the upper end, it makes it lose a little bit its ability to be pinpoint sharp in the imaging sometimes, and also some of the detailed retrieval sometimes is not exactly what I would personally prefer. But overall, the technicalities are fine, considering the price and so on and so forth. Anyway, guys, hope you liked my little take on the Topaz. As usual, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, I've got some pretty interesting reviews coming up, so keep your eyes out. All right, take care. Bye bye.